So what I developed for you are the big 5 behaviors that I see. What I see that people commonly kind of aren't sure what to navigate, what to do with, how to best help a person in the situation. And this is all what you'll get. We've started this little link here is our website. I don't know if I'll do Google or just send them to you guys individually, but then you'll all have my emails. You'll all have my information to get back to me on any questions you have. I love that. Just do not look at the time that I email you back because it might be 1 in the morning. So, power and control. That is your kiddo who does not care how they get it. They just are going to come head on at you. They might correct you in class. I had a student I was watching, little older, the 6th grader, and he was telling the teacher said, turn to page 116, and he raised his hand and said, 116, high on the spectrum. He didn't like the way the teacher was enunciating it, and he had to have it right in his brain, so he corrected the way in which you're supposed to turn to page 116. So the teacher said, turn to page 116, just to dig in a little further and show he was a little bit more in control than the child who was, excuse me, Mr. Johnson, this is an observation that I have in the classroom. 116, Mr. Johnson says, go to the principal's office. He got detention for that, you guys. So I had a little talk with Mr. Johnson and the student with autism, high functioning, Asperger's, tells you right now, he was not saying his words right because he's had 8 years of speech therapy and articulation, and he wasn't saying his words right according to his ears. That is like Charlie Brown's teacher going, whoop, 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 because he does not hear it the same as 116. But he's got to kind of get over that a little bit, doesn't he? And know that the teacher might say his hundreds, because he doesn't enunciate like that, 2 different ways. Do you see? So it's this kind of give and take of teacher, I need you to recognize that to him that doesn't even sound like the same page. Student, I need you to recognize maybe not appropriate to correct your teacher in front of class, especially not when he's a little cranky. No, those sorts of things. And so that's just an example. Other power and control, or I want the power now, I don't care how I get it, so I'm going to punch you in the face because it changes all of this. I get out of math, I go to the principal's office, I don't have to do it, and I now feel like I'm in control of the situation. That's also a moment of task avoidance because they get out of the work they were supposed to do, okay? So we'll talk about these 5. They're like little Olympic rings. If you were at the college, I'd give you a test on these 5, but no tests today, I promise. Sensory is, it feels better for me to pound my jaw right here than it does to listen to you at all. Because this is something called proprioreceptive input. Your butt bone and your jawbone give you proprioreceptive input. I don't know if you guys know this at all. But your kids that jump real hard on the concrete that's just barely under this thin carpet are trying to get that input. They're trying to get that deep. I think about all of your kids at Irving. I think about all of our kiddos at Highlight, and most all of them have a sensory need of some sort. We all have sensory needs. If I'm sitting in a boring lecture, I'm clicking the top of my pen tab. Or the little clicker like you've got, Meg, something like that, and I'm just like, this is so boring. And people finally say, shh, and I realize I'm overdoing it with my sensory, that input I'm giving myself. Some of you are sitting there chewing gum, some are crossing your legs, twiddling your things. The girls in my class at the college inevitably look at split ends in their hair. I have no idea why. That's how riveting my lectures are. They sit there and go like this and pick. Anyway, so they have different sensory needs, and you get addicted to those things. They send chemicals to your brain. So if you've got a kid who's headbanging 257 times a day, and we've baselined him at that, there's 257 times they're getting input, which is releasing serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine to their brain to let them sit there and moderate what's going on, okay? So like that kind of stuff is really powerful stuff. This is the biggest miss I see in schools across, I'm not talking here because I have, we don't miss here like we do in other schools that I go to across this state. So, but sensory by far and away, I did an observation one time. It's actually in Irving. This is years and years and years ago. Little kid is up on a stool. They're dissecting grasshoppers. So we've got formaldehyde smell, little trays out, pins, cutting the abdomen, scalpels. Come on, right? Classroom of 28 kids. This kid gets up on a chair on a stool type deal, and he does a backflip off the stool. And the teacher looks at me and says, he needs to go back to residential treatment, Shauna. And I say, there's a big sensory need there that I think we're missing, and during these unstructured times, you're going to see more of it, because they're feeding their system. That's not the whole answer for this young man, but we hadn't even begun addressing that. Does that other thing he did while I was there is he inhaled his sweatshirt. He put it as far as he could into his mouth and pulled it out as hard as he could. So your kids that chew on the top of their shirts, that gnaw, that they have a sensory need for this proprioceptive input receptor, and they really do. It's not that you say, shirt out, shirt out, shirt out, great. But until we give them a replacement for this, we're going to be in trouble because they're still seeking that amount of input on those different areas, okay? So that's your sensory kit. I had a guy who popped his prosthetic eye out, 17-year-old. Eyeball goes rolling across the floor. It is $500 to re-sanitize, re-put in that eye. Sensory need of, like, I just have to get rid of this, and I'll explain to you a little bit more about this young man. But it also was intentional, because what does everyone in this room do when I tell you an eyeball rolls out? You're like, and you can't stop people from doing that. I can't protect the world and say, by the way, this may happen if he gets frustrated, over-agitated, so just be ready. I can't do that. I can't go ahead of him and prime every single situation this young man's going to be in. So we had goggles, we had response prevention, we had hands down up the, you know what, and none of it was working. I'm like, there is something else going on here. And sure enough, he was having migraine headaches. Medical version. Any of you have migraines in here? Right. So he would, as soon as he was having a headache, he would pop in to relieve that pressure. And it did. And so then we had to address the medical concern, as well as the attention of everyone gasping, as well as the sensory need that he felt by pushing and digging. You see? So these all will come together here, I think, pretty quickly for you. Medical is what I just talked about. Migraine headaches, seizures, diet restrictions, diet addictions. There is something called an opiate addiction, and it's when kids crave carbs 24/7. And it literally sends like instant sugar to your brain, and then they crave it more and more and more and more and more. And it's called an opiate addiction, and we know that certain foods and the way the kids metabolize them can actually create that. So if you have someone in there and they're on, let's say, 3 different mood stabilizers, and they're also taking in, you know, handfuls of wheat and so forth, and it's just totally making them have more of that addiction. Milk, it can be great, can be not so great for our kids. Red dyes, any dyes really, but the reds and those are the worst. And what we know about this, you guys, just so I don't go hippy-dippy on you here, I'm just trying to really kind of give you this so you know, is our kids that we work with collectively through these 2 schools take longer to metabolize foreign substances. And a dye your body views as foreign, especially with our little ones. One of my good friends in my very first consult I told you about, I met this world-famous pediatrician. I worked with Mayo Clinic for about 4 years, just developing programs for kids and so forth. And this man there named Dr. Barbarisi, he teaches at Harvard now, told me one time, this is all you have to tell me, and this will make sense to you guys. Your brain allocates energy to your body in different ways throughout the day, throughout your functioning day. So what happens is your brain's top priority is keeping your system running. Just keeping you clicking along, making the circulatory system, the digestive system, all of those systems function the way they should. Second level of allocation of energy, you ready for this? Academic. You can bring in some information. So if you're in Spain and you need to use El Baño and go to the bathroom right now, you're able to ask about it and tell them what's going on, okay? So that's your academic piece you bring in. Third level of allocation of energy, cognitive. So when I say this kiddo might be cognitively exhausted, it means they've got nothing left for what they've got in front of them because they've given you everything. Does that make sense? So third level is you can actually control your behaviors. You can keep yourself calm. You can ask the person, can you please tell me where the bathroom is, and pray he knows sign and English sign, you know, that sort of thing as you're up there doing this. Fourth and final level are your socializations. So think about that now with our kids or our students that are affected on the spectrum. So their body's running, they've had some red dye though, so that means they can bring in some academic information, but now everything's getting a little cloudy and they're having trouble behaviorally regulating, like our little girl. I mean, I just can't even say this enough with some of the kids that we collectively work with. And the fourth level is they're not ready to socialize or even kind of in that realm at all. Now put it to us. 2 hours sleep last night, I had more than that, but 2 hours sleep last night, you're in Walmart, it's Saturday, late morning, early afternoon, 11:30, 12 o'clock, and aisle 12 is got 4 kids tantruming in it, right? And you want as far away from aisle 12, your circulatory system's going, your digestive, it's moving, but you don't want to do anything else. Not take in academic information, not go anywhere else, not do social, not do any of that. Do you see? that's what ends up happening. And so our little kids think about this, like I think about when I worked at Rivendell. They'd be at a house party all night. At 2 a.m., Dad would move the car from the bar to the house party, and they'd come in with purple lips, ravenously trying to shovel in food, and we're trying to work with them and say it's time to do number 26 in math, and they want to throw something at us, and maybe it's sharp, and then they shut up for a while, because that's exactly where they're at. They're not even functioning at a basic needs met level, right? I didn't get sleep. I didn't get food. I was neglected all night. Guess what DFS says there? Not enough to open a case, because Dad checked when he went from the bar to the house party. He got in the car with them and drove, so we don't even, 5 people report it and nothing happens. That's not always the case. It does sometimes get warranted, but that's really frustrating. Okay, medical variables. We don't know that, do we? Then they get off the bus at 8:20 and you go, woo, let's start our day. Uh-oh. Okay, they need some basic need help right now. Okay. So, attention. Oh boy. I want attention, I want it now, I don't care how I get it. If punching you means I get it, then that's worked for me. Attention can be either positive or negative, and that's the thing that we miss on this all the time. And a lot of kids negative attention seek, and it's hard to deal with this. So after I show you these 5, then I have solutions for each of them, just so you guys know. And again, you can get this, so if you don't feel like writing and listening, feel free. Escape, I want out now, and I don't care how I get out. Those two go hand in hand a lot, attention and escape. I'm going to get out of this situation, maybe it's this, I hope it's not this, because I don't like this right now, and I want to leave this instant. And you'll figure out a way, that kiddo will figure out a way. The kids who have been severely neglected are masters at escape, because they've learned to do it to avoid what? Beatings, right? Does that make sense? So they've learned to do it to save themselves. So those 5 circles, really, now I have 17 of these on my functional behavior assessment. There's justice and revenge, there's lots of other ones. But these encompass a lot of your big behaviors that you're going to see in the classroom from our kiddos, okay? And then I've got solutions to all this stuff we're talking about. So now, as we go through each of these individually, these are what I just described, so you'll, again, get that slide. Here's your attention seekers. They want to get, I had a kiddo who made Tarzan noises all the time in school. He was about a 5th grader, and all he did was, ah, in the middle of class. And that's what he wanted to do every single time he got into class. Well, its function was multifold. It was attention maintained, because the peers all laughed, and he got negative attention for it. But the other thing, we finally, when we asked him, why do you do that? He says, because it's loud in here. So what bubble does that fall into? Sensory. He's trying to drown out that other sound, because by making his own Tarzan noises, he drowns out the other 28 kids. What's the accommodation for that? Lots of you know this, because I've preached about it. Literally, I feel like I've preached about it. What can you do to give some background music? Classical. What'd you say, Joanne?
White noise.
Yeah, white noise. Anything. Wave machine, anything like that, and immediately, that's all it took. It wasn't even the other pieces of the attention and so forth, because really when they are seeking negative attention, they want positive just as much. They're just in a habit of doing the negative. Does that make, so you can usually replace the attention seeking with positive over negative, but what I couldn't replace was how that sounded like glass shards in his ears, which he physically told me. It sounds like someone stabbing me in the ear when people are making those noises, so I just make them louder. So then we had to do white noise, classical, whatever you do. No like Gretchen Wilson, cowboy, nothing like that with words in the background. Because it gets other kids super distracted. It needs to just be this fan going right now. Some of my kids on the spectrum would duck and cover under that noise. And we all sit here and go, it's fine, right? It's a little white noise. It drowns out things back there. Some of you may not even hear it. So, all right, here's the best example by far and away of an attention maintained behavior that I've ever found. If they ever take this off, please excuse that it says Crapville. So excuse that on the thing, because that's the site it's on. You guys see that okay? Little one, little peanut here. You ready? I don't think I need to turn this up. You can get the gist of this. I might sit for a little bit. My feet are bad. I've shown it at almost every presentation. So he's quiet, and then what happens? He tanks over. Just wait. Keeps going. Mom's watching. She's walking. Dog's coming. Totally ignoring. Watch this little guy. He's gonna have rug burns the next day. It's quiet. Good job. Oh, there she is. Let me see if she notices me. And down he goes. What's that? I don't know. If they ever take it off, I'm in trouble. 'Cause it's I don't know what else is even involved there. A little sensory input, but. He's dead quiet, right? Like nothing's going on. And then I get a picture of Mom, and there I go. Look at this Mom. I want to clone her. No attention. What's wrong with her? Look at the little shadow. And down he is again. Clearly nothing's wrong. You're not asking too much of him. Alright. So the thing about that is, honest to goodness, there I show a lot of my students at the college these, and this little girl argues with her dad for way too long in Walmart over a toy. I mean, it's job security for me, I get, but it's just crazy to me, some things that we argue over. So that little guy, his whole life, he's what, maybe 14, 15 months, somewhere in there, his whole life, he's gotten his needs met by doing what? Crying. That's how you know when a baby needs his pants changed, and when they are hungry, and it's been about 2 hours, yep, they're hungry again, oh, let me help you, sweetie. And right about this age, when they start babbling, start talking, start developing more sophisticated